Welcome everybody. I feel very privileged to have been asked to do this talk for you today. It's been many years since I started university for my undergraduates, so I do feel that this is a bit of an honour for me to give a talk about preparing for university. I will try and keep it as succinct as possible. I'll try not to be patronising, because there will be some things in here that will seem very obvious, but hopefully it will be very useful for you. And this is an introductory talk with regards to preparing for university. There are further talks that you'll be having that will go into more detail with some of the things that I am going to discuss with you. At any point, please feel that you can ask questions in the group chat. My lovely colleague Fiona will ask me questions as we go through. Okay, so, well, first of all, my name's Amy. I'm very privileged to work at the University of Gloucestershire. I work in the School of Education, and I've got a little picture there of me. I had a little think about, well, how do I want to deliver this talk? And the first thing that I thought about was, well, what was my journey through education? So I've got a delightful photograph that doesn't come out very often, only for special occasions. Not many people have seen this, not even my husband. This is me, age 6. I always found school really difficult. I wasn't a good student, let's say. I actually had quite a lot of behavioural needs. And it wasn't until I finally made it to university that I found out that I was dyslexic. And I went through the whole of my school career knowing that I found school hard, but couldn't really understand why. A lot of teachers had really good faith in me, supported me. So I had a few excellent teachers that inspired me to want to work in education. And really, they supported me to get to university. And I didn't have an easy ride to get there. I had to take my maths GCSE twice. So it was a bit of a battle for me, but I managed it. And when I got to university, I found that I'd found something or a way of learning that I'd never been exposed to before. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Hadn't liked education before that. Now, when I was thinking about doing this talk for you, I thought, well, if I was to give myself advice before I went to university, what would it be? And the first thing is to absolutely know what it is that you want to do. Now, my journey through school, I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. And I'd always been channeled into going towards PE because I'm very gifted at sports. So it made sense that I applied for teacher training in PE. Now, I didn't do any research on any of the universities that I was applying to. I didn't research any of the cities where they were based, and I rocked up at university, and it became very apparent that it wasn't the right course for me. So I made a brave decision, and it really upset my parents, still remember it now, to actually take a year out and really research and consider what it was I wanted to do. And I can say to you that I did manage to go to university a year later. I've got a little picture here, and that's our terrible photograph, but never mind. Very proud. Managed to get through my undergraduate. That's our graduation, and all celebrating. But what I found going through university, once I'd found the right course for me, I then had a thirst for knowledge, and I've gone on to do a master's, PGCE, and I'm currently undertaking my PhD. So university for me was the best thing I could have ever done, and now I work in one. Okay, so that's just a little overview of me and my journey. So what I'd like to talk you through, and again, you might think that this is really obvious, and I do apologise, but sometimes it does help just for the obvious to be stated. So in terms of preparing for university, if you're not very good at budgeting, I wasn't, if you're not very good at cooking, cleaning or washing, those are the obvious life skills that you absolutely need to think about before you start in September or October. The key things I would say about budgeting, and it still amazes me. I work with a lot of postgraduate students, and they still haven't quite got to grips with the money that they have coming in terms of fees, and then also ensuring that they know how much money is going to go out each month. So I would advise, and I didn't do this when I went to university the first time, have a spreadsheet, sit down with somebody who's very, very good with finances, work out how much you can have each month and budget it. Again, it sounds very obvious, but actually, if you start to put those things in place before you start your course, you will know how much money you've got to live on for the month. It might also make you think about, well, do I need to get a part-time job while I'm at university? If you're living at home, you still need to think about budgeting, because there are lots of social events that you'll go to, and you need to think about, well, how much money do I need in terms of the essentials that I need to have, but also how much money do I need to have to ensure that I get the best experience possible with the social side of university. My two wonderful twin nephews have learned very quickly how to cook. They have just finished their third year at university. If you're not very confident at cooking, you've got the perfect opportunity over the summer to learn to cook. For me, it was always stir fries. And again, personal hygiene, cleaning, all of those things. I do remember taking bag loads of washing home every 6 weeks for my mum to do. That soon stopped. And you do need to think about those things. Now, I know that sounds obvious, but that was the first thing that popped into my head, that I thought, I wish that I'd really thought about this the first time that I was preparing to go to university. Now, if you're like me, I like to know as much information as possible. So if you are not already following your university that you're hoping to go to, or that you've been accepted to, have a look at what social media accounts they have. Do they have an Instagram account, Twitter? Can you follow them? Can you get a sense of what the community's like at your university? Now, that really helps me if I'm moving into a new situation, to know as much as possible. It makes me feel comfortable. So that is a recommendation that I would suggest you do. Have a look and join, if you can, on social media, some of the things that the universities will be promoting or sharing. This is a really important one. Is there an opportunity for you to meet your fellow cohorts, so people that have applied to the same course as you? Are you able to meet them before you start? Now, I didn't have that opportunity the first time I went to university, and I think it would have really helped me actually to settle in. Just getting to know people before you start, and seeing a familiar face, because I'll be honest, I found it really scary for about 5 minutes when I first moved to the university I was going to. So if you can start to make those connections, that is a real positive. Now, some universities will do something called a pre-induction. So you get your induction week at the start of your course, but sometimes there will be opportunities that are happening at this point now, where you can meet your fellow cohort before you come into induction week. So this Thursday, I'm actually meeting my new cohort for September at a pre-induction, so that they get an opportunity to learn a little bit about the course, just to sort of ease any anxieties they might have, or any questions that they might have about their course, but also to meet each other. And it really does make a difference. So if you have been accepted onto a course at a university, seek out opportunities if you can, or see if they do a pre-induction, to enable you to start to make friends and a community. Thinking about our university, I know that in creative computing, they have a Nintendo club. So once you have accepted your offer, you get invited to that, and you can join and meet friends in different ways. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a face-to-face meeting. I'm sure there'll be lots of universities across the country that are putting things in place to make that process a bit easier for you. And I put down transport links, and I was thinking back to when I went, it was Liverpool University I went to first time. And I didn't know the city at all. I hadn't planned about how I was going to get from my accommodation to my lecture. So on a serious point, have a look at where your accommodation will be, and work out how you're going to get to university, because that can be a worry when you first get to university. And it might be something that you don't think about at this point, but if you can research that before you go, again, I think that just helps with the comfort and familiarity of where you're going a lot sooner. At our university, at the University of Gloucestershire, we have a dedicated bus that will take you from campuses across Cheltenham and Gloucester. So it's relatively easy for our students to know which buses they can get. If you're going to a larger university, you might want to really research what the best transport options are for you. So that's a top tip from me. And the other thing that's very important to me, one of the reasons why I originally chose to go to Liverpool, was local amenities, shops, restaurants, those types of things. So get to know the area that you're moving to. And if you can, the other top tip I would give you, I didn't do this the first time, go and visit your university or the area that you're going to before you start. And again, it just builds confidence for you to know, this is where I'm coming. I can see myself here. I know where I can go do my food shopping. I know where to catch the bus if I need to. All of those things will support you to have a much more seamless transition into starting university life. Okay, and again, I know they're very obvious. So I put this in here because I thought accommodation, if you are moving into halls of residence or if you're moving into rented accommodation that isn't a part of the university, there is a lot of time taken to consider what do I actually need to take with me. So I'm a list person. I really like to write lists and really think about, well, do I need this? And I will also pre-pack well in advance and reflect on whether I want to take certain things. I mean, the essentials, if you're going into accommodation where you're going to be sharing a kitchen, you need to be thinking about your own plates and all the cooking stuff that you need to take with you, but make sure that you don't take too much, because if you are in university accommodation, space can be limited depending on where you're going to be living. You need to think about what are the essential things that I need. And also, if you're like me, I like to do a lot of shopping, and on reflection, maybe I didn't need to take everything that I did, because I bought a lot of things. Think about insurance as well. This is really important. So if you are living in university accommodation or in private accommodation, you absolutely need to think about insurance for your own property and your own items. That's crucial. So think about that, research that. The good thing about insurance policies for students is that you should get a discount, have a look around to see what the best deal is for you, but absolutely get insurance just to cover yourselves in case anything does go missing. Touch wood, that won't happen, but I always like to be super safe in terms of that. So that is a key recommendation. Thinking about your safety as well. It is something that you need to think about. For me, when I was at university starting out, it wasn't something that I was really conscious or aware of, but as soon as I moved into university accommodation, you do become aware that you need to be safe. You need to ensure that people know where you are, that you have key contacts, those types of things. And when you come to your welcome week at your university, they will go through safety in terms of when you're living on your own and going from place to place. So just bear that in mind and think about strategies or things that can be in place that will support you and make you feel comfortable about your own personal safety. The wonderful thing about being in accommodation when you first start out in your first year is that the friends that you usually make are those that you live with, which is wonderful. Not always, but you do tend to make really good friends quickly because you're all in the same position. So if you are a little bit nervous about making friends when going to university, don't be. Like I say, after the first 5 minutes of me starting my university journey, I made friends, lifelong friends, as soon as I moved into my accommodation. And then I just put this here as well, depending on where your accommodation is, and it might be something that you don't think about until you get to your accommodation. But if you can, again, it comes back to this idea of being as prepared as possible. Really think about the time it will take from where you're living to get to university. A lot of the lectures that I deliver start at 9 o'clock. So if you're wanting to grab an extra 10 minutes for a lie-in, you really need to plan how you're going to get there on time. Okay, so just a little bit of food for thought. So once you have secured your accommodation, really research into how and how much time you need to get to where your lectures will be based. Okay, and again, that's very obvious. Now, I'm a bit of a geek about this. I love researching about where I'm going. If it's a job interview, I absolutely love it. If I'm going to a new place, I love researching. So this is a massive recommendation for you. And again, it comes back to this idea of the more information that you know, the more prepared you will feel when you start in September or October. So what I've tried to do, just to get you thinking, research your university. Now, there's loads of information on all university websites or on their social media accounts where you can get a sense of what support is out there for you. So at the University of Gloucestershire, I personally think we have an excellent pastoral system to support our students. We have the help zone, and you can find out information about the pastoral care at your university, usually online. Usually it's sent to you in an induction pack as well. But for me, I really like to know all of the resources, the facilities that I can access wherever I'm going. So in terms of our university, all of our students are attached to a personal tutor. So that is somebody that is separate to who will be teaching you on your course. So you usually get to know your personal tutor very well. They are your go-to person about anything that you want to ask. They're a dedicated member of staff for you. But also you can approach your course leaders, your lecturers as well. So have a look at what the systems are in place for that support at your university. I think that's really important, because one of the things I think that some students find when starting out is you don't know what you don't know. And having that information to hand before you go, again, it alleviates any sort of, oh, well, I don't know whether I should ask somebody. And the worst thing that some of the students can do is not ask, and things can be missed, or you don't get the help that you need. Or it could be that you've got a very simple question that you would like to ask somebody and you don't ask. Make sure you find out who you can contact and what systems are in place before you go, and that should alleviate any of those issues that I've just outlined. I think also, really importantly, to have a look at student finance support that they have at your university as well. I did actually go and visit my student finance department quite a bit to start with. You might find when you start your new course, sometimes it can take a while for loans to come through. It can be quite stressful, depending if you've gone through clearing, those types of things. So again, knowing who the right people are to go to for advice is really useful. At the University of Gloucestershire, we have a dedicated money advice team. Other universities will have similar things in place. Now, put health, again, and this is being super organised and prepared. Once you've accepted your place, I think it's really useful to have a look at local GPs. The university will recommend a university GP, but have a look at where that's located. Again, think about your accommodation in terms of getting there. Research all of that, because I think that helps as well. Other facilities that you could look for, and I would suggest that you do look at everything that is on offer for you, because it's been put there for students to support them. I know that my students this year with the pandemic have been very, very thankful for the pastoral care support that they've been able to access from our university. So some of them have accessed counselling. Quite a few of them have found a really peaceful, mindful space by going into our faith spaces. If that's something important to you, have a look at where those faith spaces are before you go to university. And I mentioned to you at the very beginning that it wasn't until I went to university that I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia. So make sure that you are aware of every resource that you could possibly tap into that will support you. This is about your learning journey that is beyond school. You take more ownership of it, and all of these have been put in place to support students. Again, you might want to have a look at what's in place for wellbeing. At the University of Gloucestershire, they sometimes have animals that come on site, and we have a wellbeing day where you can go and sit with the animals. So have a look at what your university offers in terms of that. But also, and this links back to the counselling, it has been a really tough year for everybody. And it's really supportive to know that you can ask for help if you need it. Okay, and mental health is so important, and every university across the country will be wanting to support people coming onto their courses. This is something else that I personally think is really important. You will have selected your university for a very good reason. Most people that I interview that want to come to the University of Gloucestershire, I'll say, why have you chosen to study here? Most of the answers tend to be around the fact that we are a very sustainable university, and that's something that's very close to their heart. So it's important for you to get a sense of the strengths of the university that you're going to. That can also help you down the line when you start applying for jobs as well. And you might get asked the question, once you start applying for jobs, when you've completed your degree, why did you decide to study at this university? And for me, I would absolutely showcase that we're a very sustainable university, and that is something that I'm very proud of. The other thing that I think is important for you to look at is whether the university's won any awards, or what is it well known for? Again, that gives you a sense of pride of, I've done brilliantly well to get my place on this course. Look at the achievements of the university, and I'm a part of this community now. So have a look at what they're really good at. What do they celebrate about? Again, alumni. So what have people done? It might be related to your course or other courses across the university. Where have they gone? Who are they? That's really important. Also thinking about your journey. You will be alumni one day, and universities want to celebrate what happens to their graduates. So it's really important that you get a sense of where people go from the university that they've attended, and how successful they've been. And they're also usually very inspiring, the ones that they showcase. I put in local events. So again, in Gloucestershire, we're spoiled really in terms of local events. We have the Cheltenham festivals, we have lots of music festivals. I think it's really important that you not just look at what's happening at the university, but also get a sense of place outside of the university. So what type of events can you go to? If you're in a big city, are there sporting occasions that maybe you can go to? Those types of things. Do some research about the area. And again, that would have probably shaped your decision making for why you chose that particular university. So make sure you look at all of those amazing opportunities that will be on your doorstep. And then I've just put there, leading nicely onto opportunities. Once you've researched all of the aspects that can support you at the university, but also give you opportunity, think about how you can turn those opportunities to support you with your future career. Now, most people, and again, I wish I'd had this top tip when I started university, you're so focused on what you've got to do with getting to grips with university life, understanding the course, the requirements, those types of things, that sometimes you forget about, well, what is the end goal for me? What do I want to achieve once I've got my degree? So think about how you can enhance your CV ready for when you go to the job market and start applying for jobs. So if there is something happening at the university, like sometimes they have a mentoring scheme. At our university, we have a graduate ambassador scheme, which is fantastic. You can inspire other students, you can mentor other students, you can maybe go and inspire young people in schools as well. Or you might work within a department within the university. So some of our students become researchers part-time. There's lots of opportunities that you can take, but think about that, because sometimes that can be at the back of your mind, and the sooner you start to seek these opportunities and take them, the stronger your CV will be by the time you get to the end of your course. Okay. So preparing for your course. Now, you will have done this already, but if you haven't, make sure that you're really thorough and look at what's being offered in for your course and what you're going to be doing when you start. Most courses at higher education level will give you the option to choose a few modules. Okay, there will be some modules, so some topics of work, where you have to do those, they're mandatory, but there are options for you to have a bit of flexibility and choose what you want to study. Do your research. I made the dreadful mistake in my first year at university of choosing a computing module, which I didn't research. I thought it sounded interesting. And it was one of the worst decisions I made. I wasn't very good at it. It's quite high level. And I didn't get a very good mark. I passed, but only just. So make sure you do your research. Have a look at your lecturers as well. Again, it's that whole sense of, I don't know who's going to be teaching me. I don't know what it's going to be like. If you research who's going to be teaching on your course, again, it just gives you that level of confidence to know, oh, they're very well known for this, they're an expert in this particular area, they've been on TV, they've written books, and you can access those things. You might be able to follow them as well on social media. Some of our lecturers are quite present on social media, and so students coming in can really get a sense of who they are and their teaching style before they start. So have a look at who's going to be teaching you, and absolutely look at the modules that you will be taking, mandatory, but also have a think about, well, how do I want to shape my course? What do I want to specialise in? You need to make sure that you don't take a module that you don't like or love. If you're going to do something where there's a practical element, usually your university will send an induction pack that says you need to have this type of equipment or kit. If they don't do that, there's no harm in you asking. For my PE students that come on for teacher training, they get sent a list for kit. But similarly, if you're going into, let's say, film production, we have a fantastic film production course. There will be specific equipment that you're asked to get before you start. So double check that. Top tip, you can always look, sometimes in SU shops, they might have secondhand books, those types of things. Think about saving money as well. There's always ways to get the equipment you need on a budget. And I certainly did that. This one's really important, actually, pre-reading. So when I meet my new cohort tomorrow, I will be giving them 3 or 4 books to read. Again, it's about building confidence and also igniting your passion for the course that you've picked, and getting a sense of academic reading, academic writing. One thing that I would say that I found very challenging to begin with when starting university is referencing and academic writing. Now, I know that there is a dedicated talk on this in this series of talks, but I have put a link for Cite Them Right for you to have a look at before that. Essentially, what we want you to do at university is to support what you're saying with someone who's written a book about it or a journal, and I'm saying this very simplistically. You have to evidence where you've got your ideas from or where you've read to prove that you're doing that work. All right, but there is a dedicated session on that. That was one of the hardest things that I found starting, and now I absolutely love academic writing, but there is an art to it. So have a little look at the link at the end of that. That will be helpful for you. Now, I thought this was really important. So if we're thinking about ways of learning, think about your experience at school. There are specific ways in which we are taught in school where we have to recall and retrieve information. We have exams. Depending on your course, those expectations might be slightly different. So it might be that you're doing coursework. It completely depends on the subject of which you've selected to study. You might have tests, you might have exams. My course that I lead is practical based, so there are practical placements which you get assessed for, but also there are written assignments that you have to do, and there are no exams on my course. So look at that. Again, that comes back to the previous slide where I said research your course, look at the expectations of what you've got to do. Now at school, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not going to say it's correct, but there is a lot of support from teachers that navigate you through ensuring that you have all of the information that you need to succeed to the best of your ability. At university, we strive to do that, but because you are coming into an undergraduate programme, there is an expectation that you have to be independent, highly motivated, self-motivated. We can't make you do it. You've chosen to come and do this course. You have a desire to go into a particular career. You have to take ownership of your learning. Now, in terms of teaching styles, with my course, we do a variety of teaching styles because we want our students to reflect that in school. If you're doing a technical course, it might be that you are given direct instruction, do this, do that, do part A, part B, part C. If you are doing, let's say, a humanities subject, it might be slightly different. You might do a bit of inquiry-based learning where they give you a paper to read, and then you have to go and investigate what that means. You will be expected to do a lot of independent study and reading. So if you're not organised, I would strongly advise you find strategies for being organised. Think about what worked for you at school. And I think the key thing is if you don't have an electronic calendar, or you might want to have a physical diary, as soon as you get the dates for any assignments that you have to hand in or any exams that you might have to do, put them in your calendar, but block out time where you are going to work on that. Now that sounds really obvious, but it's so exciting starting university that sometimes those things can slip. And you've got to remember, always think about, why am I doing this course? Well, the end goal is to get this type of job. Make sure that you stick to the timelines to ensure that you meet your assignments and that you submit them. Otherwise, that can make university life not as nice. So be super organised, expect it to be slightly different in terms of teaching. Another example I'll give you, it might be that you go to a university where it's very much seminar based. So you'll have a lecturer at the front who gives you the information. They may ask a couple of questions, but it won't be the same as how you've had content delivered to you in school. All right, so be mindful of that. It will be different, and you will be expected to be more independent, but that's brilliant. I've put these two in because I think for anybody coming in to university, you will be thinking about, well, will it be face-to-face? Will it be online teaching? I'm really proud to say that our teaching was face-to-face. We did manage to do that this year, and that really did help build a community. But I think moving forward, and this is a positive, there probably will be a blend of face-to-face and online teaching. Now, if you have online teaching, you will have experienced it at school. Ensure that you have breaks, that you do step away from the laptop, and it's a different way of working. You still can make those connections online at university. I've seen it with my students this year, building friendships, even having to do that online. So if you are slightly worried about that, please don't be. I can assure you you can still have a really positive learning experience if you do have to have some online teaching. Managing your time, I've already mentioned that. Really do try and think about, how am I going to organise myself? How am I going to ensure I don't miss deadlines, but I still have a really good experience at university? So really think about that. And organisation as well. The first time I went to university, I wasn't organised, hence why I left. Second time I went, I had a year, I worked for the year, and I absolutely thought about how I was going to organise myself so that I enjoyed and made the most out of my university experience. So I had all of the diaries, coloured pens, all of those things, and ensured that I worked towards deadlines in a manageable, not last minute way. Okay, so think about that. And again, I've mentioned this already, really do ask for help. Now, although it's university, that doesn't mean that you don't ask your teachers or go and speak to a personal tutor about anything that you're not 100% sure about. Remember, this is about you taking ownership. This is your course. This is your learning. If you want to know something and you're unsure, be confident to go and ask that question, okay? Now, if you have applied to university and you've been accepted, you should have received information about your welcome week. The top tip I'll give you for this is embrace the welcome week. Meet new people, try all of the activities that are put in place. They are there to help you settle in. Universities are absolutely brilliant at this. It's a brilliant week. You get lots of freebies. But if you've done all of the things I've said previously, you should enjoy it even more, because you'll have a greater sense of where you're going, what your course is about, and it should make this first week of induction really nice. Okay. And for me, I mean, maybe this is just because I'm getting a little bit older now, explore your surroundings. Well, we're spoiled in this area, so I had to show off a beautiful picture of Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. But again, once you've made new friendships and you feel that you're part of a community, go out and explore and appreciate where you are. I have to say, I don't think I did that. And I've been to 4 different universities. One of them I did appreciate, but the others I didn't, and I don't think I made the most of it. I studied my master's at Manchester. I loved the course, but I didn't explore the city and I didn't feel a part of it. So if you get the opportunity, go out and get a sense of where you are. I love this. So one of the things I was really excited about going to university was to try new things, or to try a new sport. And I wanted to try fencing, and I was absolutely rubbish at it. But there's a whole range of sports and societies wherever you've decided to go and study that you can engage with. So you could try something new. It might be that you're absolutely fantastic at a particular sport and you're really keen to get involved with that. So at our university, we have an excellent badminton team, biased because I play badminton. And we also have fantastic netball, rugby. We've got a range of teams that are outstanding. Now, you might think, well, that's not me. So if you're not competitive, I'm very competitive, but you want to try something new and make friends, try something fun. Absolutely do that. All universities will have a variety of activities and sporting societies or social groups that you can get involved with. And it doesn't have to be like the previous slide where it's competitive. But again, what this enables you to do is to meet new people, try something new and have fun. It might be something that you've never done before and you might find that you absolutely love it. And I think that's brilliant. That's one of the wonderful things about going to university. And again, this is just another lovely example. You could join a singing group, drama, dance. It could be absolutely anything. Or if they don't have what you want, in terms of the society, you could start your own. And a couple of years ago, and my colleague Fiona will be smiling, we did have a dedicated society called Dumbledore's Army, relating to Harry Potter. Doesn't exist anymore. I'm a bit devastated about that. But it could be that you find some like-minded people at university and you want to create your own group, your own society, and just have fun. And I do think that is one of the magical things about going to university, that anything is possible. So more serious now. Employability. So crucially, you're going to university to get a job at the end of it, and getting your degree creates the opportunity for you to do really well in whatever career pathway you've taken. That's the end game. So think about that in terms of gaining work experience through your course. At University of Gloucestershire, we have your future plan, where there are opportunities for you to think about how you can make your CV strong, how you can gain the relevant experience to get the dream job that you're wanting to achieve at the end of your course. So look at what's in place at your university and be thinking about that at this point. I think that is one of the key messages I would say to you is, ultimately, what is the end game for you of doing your course? Yes, it's to broaden your subject knowledge. Yes, it's to make friends, be independent, all of those amazing things that university life gives you. But ultimately, what are you working towards? So take every opportunity that you can. Sometimes there's opportunity to work abroad. Sometimes there's work experience modules that you can do. Make sure that you're thinking about that and seeking out those opportunities and research them before you go so that you know. The second university I went to, I didn't do my research. There were only a certain amount of people that could go to America and get some work experience. And I missed out on that because people had applied well before I found out. So have a look at what's available to you. Really important. Again, it's about organisation. And then I also put on here, working part-time as a student. Most students will want to work part-time. I did, I loved it. It helped me buy my clothes I wanted to buy. Think about that. Is that something that you want to do? Do you want to have extra income to support you? If so, maybe start looking at what job opportunities are available now. Now, most universities will have a job shop. I know that we have that at the University of Gloucestershire. Or again, and it comes back to getting to know your area, if you go and visit your university before you start in the new academic year, have a look at what potential job opportunities are there and apply early if you absolutely need to have a part-time job. Again, be proactive and think about that. Quite a lot of universities will have jobs within the university system, so you could look at that. But sometimes quite a lot of students actually like to have that time and space away from the university, so you can make a whole new group of friends that are from a different community. Okay, you'll be pleased to know that I've nearly finished. So there are a couple of links here for you that hopefully will be useful. These are the links that I would direct people starting in October for our university. There will be similar links to other universities, but I've put these here just to sort of help guide you if you want to go and research where you're going to be going. The key one that I think you should all have a look at is Cite Them Right online. Don't worry if you don't understand it to begin with. There is a talk on critical reflection, which I imagine will include looking at referencing and academic writing. So have a look at it. By the end of your degree, you will know how to do academic writing and how to reference. But if you've got a relative understanding of it before you start, again, that builds confidence. And just to remind you that we have 3 more talks in the calendar. So the 13th of July is focusing on mental health and well-being. I very briefly talked about that, but so important. The 20th of July, preparing for university critical thinking. So have a look at Cite Them Right, have a look at your course, think of all the things that I've said, because that will help with this particular session as well. And then, and this is really lovely, a student panel and Q&A where you can ask what it's actually like. So with my pre-induction that I'm doing tomorrow, I've got a group of students that are going to talk to the new cohort, and they can ask anything that they like. You probably will find that incredibly valuable, because there'll be questions you can ask them that maybe you feel you can't ask people that work in the university. So that will be an excellent talk as well. Questions?
So Amy, we have had a few come in. I've tried to answer them as you've been speaking, but there are a couple I'd like to put to you actually. So one of the first ones was, from your experience, how are lecturers like, or how are lectures? So I guess from a point of view, you can talk about your colleagues who are also teaching, and I guess maybe a bit about what the teaching styles are like.
I think what you'll find is that it's very different. So there won't be a set pattern in school. So if you think about school, where you might have a starter activity, you might recap on the learning the previous week. From my experience and working with colleagues, it doesn't tend to be like that. It's more discussion based. We want to know what you can bring. It might be that we get you to look at some reading. We might ask you questions. But it might be that we are giving you a lot of information, and then we'll set you off in discussion groups. So there's more ownership on yourselves than in school. And there's more flexibility, is what I would say, in terms of what you can bring and what you can research. I think what's exciting about being at university and the way in which lectures run, it might be that I'm talking about the way that they teach, I don't know, in Scotland. They have a slightly different curriculum to what we have here. That might spark an interest in one of the students, and they might then go and read about, well, what happens in Finland? And then the next lecture that we have, we'll have a discussion about that, but linking to whatever it is that I'm teaching. If I think about our creative computing course that we've got, so games, it might be that you're shown how to do a particular type of coding, but it's very much do this, do that, and the lecturer will model how to do it, and you follow along with it, and then you go away and do some reading as to how you can further develop that. There's no set way for your lecturers to teach you, and you will get a lot of different styles, and this is why it's important for you to work out, well, how do I learn from that? What do I do? So for me, my degree that I eventually went on to do was psychology and fine art. In my psychology lectures, it was very much someone stood at the front with a presentation, not really giving you questions. There were videos, there were group discussions, but we didn't get asked questions. And the way that I found that I could learn the best was almost like having a knowledge organizer. So I would write really good notes, I would highlight things. If I didn't understand something, I'd very quietly go and see the lecturer at the end, or book an appointment, get them to explain it to me, or I'd go away and read about it. So slightly different to what you might have experienced in school. If you're doing an education-based course, then it will be taught similar to how it is in school, because that's what you're going to do eventually when you go on to be a teacher. If you're doing nursing, again, there will be different ways in which you're taught. It might be that you're doing hands-on practical, so you might be shown how, somebody might model how you're going to do something. Make notes. Buy lots of books to write notes would be my advice. I don't know if that's answered the question.
Thanks, Amy. I'm just mindful of time, so we've got about 10 more minutes and definitely a few more questions for you.
Okay.
So I will probably tell you what the questions are, and then you can use the remainder of the time. So just in case I also misread that one, I imagine it's also what our lecturers like, and not just their teaching style.
Oh, okay, what they like. They're lovely.
Just in case I misread that. And then another question after that was about if you don't like your course anymore and wanted to change it down the line, could you do that instantly, or would you have to go through a long procedure?
All right, I'll go with the one about what our lecturers like. It's different to school again. and you build really good relationships with the lecturers because you're an adult, and that's how we treat you. So you can build really good, positive relationships with your lecturers. You might even socialise with them. So it's slightly different to school. Okay, and they're absolutely lovely, very approachable. And I'm talking from my experience working at this university, and I also worked at Northumbria University. Very approachable, wanting to help students. And I think what you've got to think about is that we are experts in the course that we're teaching, or the subject. So we're very passionate about it. So if you are really passionate about it as well, that's going to build a very positive relationship as well. So lecturers are lovely, but I'm biased. Okay, so the other question that Fiona just put forward was about, if you don't like your course, what do you do? Well, I can talk about that. It's probably better to make that decision sooner rather than later, because there are cost implications to it. The longer you stay on a course, the more cost you will incur. And I don't mean to sound negative about that, but that's the reality. So if you have any doubt about the course that you are doing, you need to be really clear about, well, is it the course or is it just the module? Sometimes there are modules that I didn't like, but I loved the overall course. So if it's just a module, then maybe really reflect about that. If it's the whole course, then you need to make, in my opinion, a really good informed judgment. And again, this comes down to asking for help. If you are not sure about the course, go and talk to your lecturers, talk to your personal tutor, talk to your family. I made a mistake going the first year. It wasn't for me. I didn't want to do sports. My heart was in the arts and psychology. And I left after 6 weeks, and it still incurred a cost, but I made that decision after 6 weeks. I did give it a go. Some people can make decisions a lot quicker. Some people leave it later. What I would say is, if you make the decision after 2 years, that's a really hard call. It can take time for things to be processed in universities, so bear that in mind as well. And that's every university. Systems can take a long time. But if you get to the point in your second year where you think, actually, no, I don't want to do this, there are potential opportunities to transfer onto another course within the university, but you'd have to talk to people about that. And there are rare occasions where people might look at another university that does a similar course, but they think that fits with them more, and you can transfer. But that can take time because you have to be interviewed by the other university, and there's a couple of hoops to jump through. I hope that answered that question for you.
Thank you, Amy. So I've got 3 more questions for you. One is about, do you have any recommendations for any resources explaining referencing media that you've read or seen and putting it into your work?
Referencing media? Can you repeat that again, Fiona?
So do you have any recommendations for any resources that explain how you reference media that you've read or you've seen and putting it into your work?
Yeah, so what I would say is, so depending on which university it is, they all have a particular way of referencing. So at our university, it's the Harvard referencing system, and it will have specific information about how you reference an image or how you reference a newspaper article. It will give you a step-by-step guide as to how you do that. If you go to another university that has a different type of referencing system, you have to follow those rules. They're kind of like a set of rules, is what I would say. Start off by looking at Cite Them Right, would be my first port of call. And depending on what course you're doing, I would actually get in touch with your future lecturer, or it could be the first thing that you ask the first week that you go, for them to recommend as well, because each course is slightly different. And I'm assuming with media, are we talking about art and design or fine art, or that's quite broad, so I can't narrow it down for you specifically. So if you want to put another question in the chat just to give me some clarity, that would be brilliant.
Amy. The next question we have is from Harry. What sorts of help is there for people like me who have dyspraxia?
So Harry, it's a brilliant question. My nephew was diagnosed with dyspraxia, second year of university, and his experience was that extensions were put in place to support him, to give extra time. If he had an exam, he had extra time as well. So all of those things can be put in place. Our university has an excellent department to support students that need extensions, or they might need somebody to maybe proofread their assignments. Find out what's at your university in relation to the help that you need. All universities will have a dedicated department that will help students. It might be that we've had a couple of students who had hearing impairments or visual impairments, and sometimes they'll have someone that comes in and writes notes for them. So reach out to university and say, actually ask them, what support can you put in place for my circumstances? And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that there will be a lot of support there for you. I can talk for what we do at our university, but I don't know if that'll be helpful for you, depending on where you've decided to go. But absolutely reach out. Do that before you start in September. Again, that will make you feel confident that you're as prepared as possible, but there'll be lots of things that they'll be able to put in place to support you.
Thank you, Amy. And the student before said it's illustration.
Illustration.
The next question, if you don't get the grades needed to enter the university, could a teacher's reference cover up and get you into it? Or would you have to apply for another university, although it may be late?
Oh, it's a good question. And it was very interesting last year with what happened with when all the grades came out and then they changed. I would say you've got different ways that you could tackle this. You could either go through clearing. If it was me and I was advising my nephews, I would say contact the university directly, find out who their head of school is, explain your circumstances. If it's a case that you've had mitigating circumstances that's impacted your results with your grades, then yes, a teacher's letter of support is really good. But the key thing here is to get in touch with the right person at the university. And that can be really hard and frustrating at times. It's knowing who to get in touch with. I actually supported somebody last year, friend of mine, whose son didn't get into their university of choice because their grades came out lower than predicted, but then they were topped up because of what happened last year, but they still didn't get their place. So I helped them with that process and suggested that they speak to the person who is in charge of that particular area. And it not always guaranteed, but they did have a good outcome because they got to the right person to talk it through with. Getting angry is not a good idea. Being pushy is not a good idea. Being professional and presenting a strong case, like having a teacher's letter, is the best chance you've got in that particular situation, in my opinion. Other people might give you different advice.
And that is our final question. So with 2 minutes to go, Amy, if there's anything you want to wrap up, please do, and then we will stop recording.
I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me. My poor students have to have this all the time. I do like talking. I wish you all the best with your journey. It is really exciting. Just be organised, take every opportunity that you can, and also think about the end game of where do I want to be, what opportunities can I give myself to get there, and I think that will help you to succeed. But thank you for listening. I hope it was helpful.
And hopefully on the next slide we've got the evaluation link.
Oh yes, thank you, Fiona. Please can you complete this? It will be really useful for us to get your feedback. That would be brilliant. So if you can take the time to fill out that evaluation, that would be wonderful.